few seconds to deal with the tech. Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Miriam Amodu. I'm the CEO of Getting Education Consulting, and I'm here to talk to you today on the invitation of Legally Engaged about key things to look out for when you're deciding on schools for a postgraduate degree. Now, before we go in, I'm just going to discuss a few administrative issues. The first is that this session is going to be available for you to watch again. I'll just need to get your email address from Legally Engaged to be able to send it to you. And the second thing is that I'm recording this online for an audience that's going to view it later. So future audience, this is a live session with lawyers who are trying to pursue graduate studies or thinking of pursuing graduate studies. And this session is useful for lawyers and everyone else as well. So I'm also going to give you a bit of an outline into what I'm going to discuss today. And at the end, we're going to have questions. So today I'm going to introduce myself and let you know why I do think I'm a good person to have this conversation with you. The second item on the agenda is to really explain to you why it is important to be strategic in your decision to pursue graduate studies. The third thing I'm going to discuss is why graduate school is or could be good for you. The fourth thing is I'm going to also ask whether graduate school is for everyone. Then I go into 8 key things that you need to look out for when you're deciding on graduate studies. And then we open the floor for questions, and I'll respond to you as best as I can. So a little bit about me. So I'm currently a PhD candidate at the University of Toronto Faculty of Law, and I previously pursued a master's degree in commercial law at the University of Cambridge. Prior to that, I did law school at the University of at Lagos campus, and I got my undergraduate degree in law from the University of Ibadan. So basically, I know school, and I like school. That's the truth. So I think based on my personal experiences, I'm able to give you a bit of a roadmap into what you should be thinking about and what you should be looking at if you're trying to pursue graduate studies. So Getting Education Consulting was actually founded because of experiences I had and experiences other people have had with their postgraduate study experience. So one of the things I found out is that a lot of people are not strategic about their decision to pursue graduate school, graduate studies. They just feel, okay, everybody's going for masters, it's my turn, let me go for masters. And even though I run an education consulting business, in fact, sometimes people think I'm trying to discourage them from going for a graduate degree, but that's not the truth. I'm just trying to ask the hard questions to be sure that you know exactly where you're going and you're not just following the tide. And this is because graduate school is obviously going to take your time, could be potentially expensive. So if you're not strategic, you'll find out that you're putting in more or you've put in more than your expected return. So I'm going to give my personal experience. So when I finished my graduate degree at Cambridge and I returned to Nigeria, I applied for a job. Even though I had a job I could have gone to, I wanted to go in-house. You know, in-house for the non-lawyers means I wanted to work in a company as opposed to working in a law firm. So I decided to apply for a job at an investment bank. And I went for the interview. Even me, I knew that the interview was good. You know, I knew that I had done so well. And that I was the first person they interviewed, and they were ready to hire me on the spot. So I asked for the salary. And when they said the salary, I was like, no, this is not going to work. So I quoted something that was about times 4 or 5 of what they were offering, which they weren't willing to offer at that time. Now, the lady who interviewed me said she was going to give me an additional salary of 20,000 naira a month, based on, in addition to what they had offered initially. Now, for those who are not Nigerians, 20,000 naira is literally about $70 extra. So to that company, the value, and she said she was going to pay me 20,000 naira a month in addition because I had a master's degree. So to that company, the value of my graduate degree was 20,000 naira per month. So that's $70 times 12, which is basically less than $1,000 a year. That was the value of my master's degree to that company. So that made me rethink everything. I always thought that once I came back with a master's from Cambridge, I mean, everybody's going to want me. I'll be able to quote, a price that I wanted. I had a very good undergraduate degree. I had good extracurricular, activities. Why was I being offered this money? And in that case, the reward for the investment wasn't commensurate. So I obviously declined the offer, but that was one of the things that made me so passionate about ensuring that people are not just making decisions without a bit of a clear goal as to what they're trying to achieve in graduate school. Okay, so another thing I hear a lot from people who pursue graduate studies is, if I had known this, I might have had this opportunity. If I had known XYZ, if I had spoken to this person, if I had made this connection, I would have had, I would have made the best of my graduate studies. So I'm going to actually do you guys a bit more than what I've been asked to do, because I can't just tell you these are the 8 key things you need to look out for, without really doing a holistic approach as to why graduate school could be good for you and why you need to choose, why you should choose to go to a particular grad school or not. So I hope I'm not going to be deviating too much from the brief by going, approaching it from that perspective. So, so the next thing I'm going to talk about now is, so I've explained why it's important to be strategic, because you want to ensure that you get the returns for your investment, right? Now, the next thing is, why could graduate school be good for you? Now, graduate school, or school generally for me, is and always has been more than the academic, I'm going to school, I'm reading this, and then I'm passing, and that is it. So if you're pursuing graduate school and you have the mentality that you're going to just go and get a degree, you are actually losing out big time. And that is not what graduate school is about. Graduate school is an advanced level of studies. Nobody's going to chase you to submit your assignments. Nobody's going to, care if you don't do anything at the time you're supposed to do. You're just going to see your grades and you deal with what you have to deal with. There's a lot of independent study, especially if you are, doing a research-based program. So actually, I'm going to talk about 9 things now. It's just something else just came to my mind, and I need to just put it down. Okay, fantastic. So the first thing graduate school is good for is exposure. Now, I don't sugarcoat anything. A lot of us who studied in developing countries, not just Nigeria, but Nigeria is a very peculiar case because a lot of other African countries are doing very well with the education sector. A lot of us who studied in Nigeria, I think, may not have a certain level of exposure that you might get if you decide to pursue graduate studies abroad. Of course, you can decide to pursue graduate studies in Nigeria as well. And I'm not saying this to bash the system, it's just a matter of fact. For example, the kind of access to materials that you get, just online access. By logging into my university library online, I have access to thousands of millions of articles that I used to struggle to access as an undergraduate student. And a lot of people who study abroad take it for granted because it's there. But if you've studied in an average Nigerian, probably, a public university, or how it works. But can you hear me? Am I still here? Just need to be sure. Am I here? Okay, I think so. Okay, thank you. So if you yeah,
Miriam, keep going.
Okay, all right, awesome. So if you studied in an average, public university, you might have struggled with, for example, accessing materials that you needed to write your project. I remember when I wrote my first essay, long essay, I was quoting Wikipedia because I didn't know that Wikipedia is not a good source to code because it's an open, is a Creative Commons, an open network. And that's because I didn't have access to the journals and some of the textbooks that I needed to make my contributions. And exposure is not just in terms of materials. Exposure to a different culture, to a different way of doing things, exposure to a different system in terms of how professors relate to students, and things like that. So the exposure is a good thing. The second thing you can get from doing pursuing a graduate degree abroad is also connections. But this is something you have to be deliberate about. Now, when I say connections, I'm going to give you a personal example. When I was applying for my master's, for my PhD, I remember sending an email to somebody who taught me during my master's, and I said, look, can you give me a reference? And when I got into my PhD, my professor who accepted me basically said, anybody that Professor X gives a reference to, I must accept the person, right? And that was because I just managed, I'm not the best at networking, despite what you might think. I'm really not the best. It's so awkward for me, but I just managed to have a relationship with this man. And he was one of the core persons that opened the door for me. Now, you might have fantastic professors in Nigeria who are well-renowned. If you have those, then you need to connect. But if you're going abroad, sometimes they may not even know, if you're going for like further studies, they may not really know, our professors and things like that. So having that connection that spans your local surrounding is also very useful. And graduate school will help you get that, especially when you're looking at the future. You can also get opportunities that resonate globally. So for example, a lot of the schools abroad are very keen about supporting their students for competitions, things like that. And you might get those opportunities. You might also have more options in terms of, having a post-study work permit. You might be able to get work experience, by during your master's or immediately after your master's. You might also hopefully learn a couple of things that you can bring back home. So these are some of the advantages of graduate studies. Now, I'm not here to say, yes, everybody now let's go. The next thing is graduate school for you? And there are three things that you need to consider. While I agree that almost everyone can benefit really from having any of those experiences that I just mentioned, like those benefits, there are three things you need to consider, whether graduate school is for you. The first thing is this the right time for you to go to grad school? Is this the right time? There's so many people who push their parents into unnecessary debt because they want to go for a master's without clarity on what they want to achieve. Going abroad for master's is more than the Instagram photos. It's a career decision, right? So is this the right time for you? Some people would tell you you're lawyers, so I can go into your specific case. Some people will tell you that you need a few years work experience before you go for a master's because you might have a better idea where to specialize and so on and so forth. There's some truth in it, but it's not an absolute. So I personally wouldn't say you need to get a certain number of years of work experience. I think it all ties back to your specific goals. Okay? It ties to your specific goals. For instance, I worked only for 1 year before I went for my master's because I knew what I wanted. I knew that I wanted a graduate degree from an Ivy League school. And I knew that if I needed to get into an Ivy League school, it was best for me to apply immediately I finished law school. Why? Because every year I waited, more people are graduating from university with as good or better grades than I have, and the competition becomes wider. So I knew I was targeting certain scholarships. I knew that I had the grades to get me those scholarships, but I did not want the next generation, which is you guys, to come and take my slots. So I quickly applied because of those factors. To me, it didn't really matter. You understand? It didn't really matter whether I had a specialization or not. And I'm going to explain to you why it makes sense for me to just go to grad school a year after. I'm going to explain that. It's basically what I call the signaling effect. Now, another thing you need to consider is funding. A lot of times, one of the hazards of my job is I get a lot of messages saying, please, I need scholarship, give me scholarship. How can I get? I say, even me, go, I need scholarship. I also need scholarship. I need funding. But the point is that a lot of times, because we are not strategic, you end up having admission, spending so much time, so much money to gain admission, but then you're looking for funding. Like, I don't know, how did we expect the money to come? I don't know. So there are ways you need to be very strategic. Can you finance that degree? If you can't finance that degree, are you going to a school that gives substantial funding? If you're not going to a school that gives substantial funding, or if you can't get into a school that gives substantial funding, have you considered schools where tuition is very cheap or almost free? The problem is that a lot of people are not willing to compromise. A lot of people are not willing to compromise when it comes to their grad school. They feel it must be America, it must be Canada, it must be England. And that is a myopic way of viewing graduate school, especially if you know or you have an idea of what your future goals are. Okay, so funding is important. Yes, there's scholarships and you should apply for them, but you need to have an idea of how you're going to fund the degree. Now, what I advise clients to do is to apply to different categories of schools. If a client doesn't have funding at all, I don't encourage application to schools that I know will require you to pay, because you're wasting effort. So what I do is I advise you to go to schools that usually have guaranteed funding. The competition is very high. You may not get there. You might not, and you might, but you have to try. But you need to know that, okay, this one I may not get in because the competition for the funding is hot. And I may, depending on how my application is. Then you need to have some safety schools as well. That, okay, these schools also, maybe not my first choice, but they have some funding. And then you need to have schools that once you get in, it's almost guaranteed that you will go, which most of the time end up being schools in Europe. Right? So it all depends on what you want to achieve, but you need to have a strategy for funding. Just today, I got another email, saying, or a message from someone I don't know, but I encourage it. I like it. I like helping people as much as I can. Saying, and I get, at least I get 3 to 4 of those messages every day, saying, I applied to school, the school fees is $100,000. They gave me $60,000. Now I need $40,000. I discuss and tell them strategies, but that they can use to get more money. But it's in some situations, if there's no money, the school can't do anything. So funding. Then the third thing you need to consider, when deciding whether graduate school is right for you, is your direction in life. Your direction. What are your career goals? What are your plans? What are your plans? Now, I'm not going to put you under pressure, because guess what? I didn't really know what my plans were. But you need to have an idea of where you see yourself, of the kind of future that you want for yourself. If you have an idea of that future, then you can go to graduate school. But if you don't have an idea of that future, the only reason why you should go to graduate school is if someone is paying for you. And the person is not going to be stressed. So maybe you have like a family member who's like, oh, go to grad school, I'll pay for you. Your parents can pay without being stressed, or you can get a scholarship. If you have a scholarship, no matter, even if you don't know what you want to do tomorrow, go. Because you're going to benefit from exposure and all of that. So I would never say you shouldn't go because you don't know the exact direction that you're taking. But if you're unclear, if you don't even have an idea, it's okay for you to say, you know what, I want to be an international investment law lawyer. That's okay. Just have an idea, or I want to be an expert in bioethics law. An idea is fine. But if you don't have an idea, you're going to end up floating throughout the graduate school experience. So let me give you my example. When I went to graduate school, I didn't really, I came from a commercial law background. So it made sense. I was like, oh, I'm going to do commercial law, just because I felt that was a safety. It was safe. No matter what, I could always come back to Nigeria and say, I have a master's in commercial law and sound very awesome. But in reality, what I should have done was international law. But because I didn't really have a background in international law, I felt, well, it's too late for me to start learning all of that, But what I now did was I tried to customize my LLM to choose courses that would fit my end purpose. I am the only one who had that combination of courses in my whole LLM class. So I did law of the World Trade Organization, I did law and economics, I did international commercial litigation, and I did corporate finance. And that was like the weirdest combination. But I knew that my interest lay around, trade, financing trade, business, things like that. So I was able to make those decisions. But if I didn't know, I could have been doing human rights law, which I don't have any interest in. Okay, so now that I've given you the background, which I think is compulsory and is necessary, now let me go into the 8 things you need to think about when you want to choose, graduate school. And I've sort of hinted at some of them, so I may not go that deep into them anymore. The first thing is, this school that you're going to, do they have a specialization, an area of expertise, or something that they're known for? Now, there are some schools where they're famous for intellectual property law. There's some schools that are famous for trade law. Some schools are famous for, law of the sea. Excuse me. What is that school? What is that law school famous for? If you look at some of these law schools, they have like clinic, not really clinics. They have what do I call them? They have like sometimes institutes. Sometimes they have just bodies or organizations or councils that meet from time to time. So when you look at their website, what the school projects is who they are. And a couple of schools will obviously have different interests, but you need to find out, what is this school known for? And the reason why it's good to go to a school that is known for what you want to do is because you're going to get more opportunities, that relate to what you're interested in. So if a school is known for intellectual property law, the odds are that they're inviting experts, on IP to come and give talks to you guys. The odds are that they'll be able to, know about internships you can do in relation to intellectual property. The odds are that there's an IP competition that you can enroll in. So it's not just enough to say, oh, I'm just going to any school that accepts me. What is that school known for? Now, another thing you need to look at is, what is the reputation of the school? Now, I'm very wary when I talk about reputation, because in the end, it really depends on your goals. So for me, I said it didn't matter when I went to law school. I went for a graduate degree or to pursue a graduate degree, because I was really after the reputation. And let me tell you what reputation of a school does. Reputation is just a signaling effect. It basically shows that maybe you are smart up to a certain level. It really does nothing more than that. And there are other ways you can signal to the market that you're a valued candidate. So if you don't go to a school, an Ivy League school, Harvard and Oxford, there are other ways you can signal to the market that you are worth a certain value. Just that going to those kinds of schools is just an easy way to do it. But the best thing that going to Harvard is going to do is to get you an interview. I promise, going to Harvard is not going to get you a job. Going to Harvard is not going to get you an internship at the ICJ or the ICC. It's not going to do that. You might be considered because you've gone to Harvard, but that's all. That's all. Going to Cambridge did not get me a job. It got me a foot in the door. So if there are other ways you know that you can signal that you are a valuable candidate. For example, you're graduating from uni and you already have 1 or 2 publications in your field. You have co-authored a paper with a professor. You have interned. I've been having this conversation about Legally Engaged doing a Supreme Court Justice internship program. It's so important because one of the ways that lawyers signal value in other markets is who has interned in the Supreme Court, but we don't have that equivalent. So our peeps are losing out, So there are other ways you've participated in an international competition and you did well. Those are ways you can signal value. So that way you can go to another school, or you can go to another school confident that you're still going to come out on top. For example, for me, I'm at the University of Toronto. While it's the best university in Canada, It's not the best university in the world, but that's not what I needed at this point. I had to choose Canada for other factors. Okay, so reputation is something that you really need to be careful about. I've worked with clients who keep saying it must be Stanford, it must be Harvard, it must be MIT. And I'm like, yes, those places are good and you deserve to be there, but you need to be strategic because there are only so many there are only so many slots. Now, the next thing you need to look at is the location of the school. Now, this is people don't think about this. People think about this only in terms of the work permit, but that's not all. You need to look at the location of the school in terms of the industries that are around that school. For example, if you're in New York, you're obviously in the heart of business. If you're in Washington, you're in the heart of politics. If you're in Geneva, you're also like in the heart of international relations. If you're in Brussels, you are in the heart of EU law. If you're in England, you're in the heart of Brexit. Well, I'm just kidding. Scratch that. But what happens in the place you are going to? What happens there? Or what happens in the places you want? You need to consider the locations. So for instance, if you're interested in obviously like very techy stuff, you're looking at Silicon Valley, right? What are the schools around? It doesn't have to be MIT, it doesn't have to be Stanford. There are other schools that will take advantage of that ecosystem. Okay? The other schools will take advantage of that ecosystem. You're within the ecosystem, and that's all that matters. So you can go and drop a speculative application and say, look, I want to intern with you for free in a company. And you don't know where that can lead. Okay, so you need to consider the ecosystem, the kind of ecosystem you want to be in, and basically the schools around that ecosystem. Another thing you need to look at is funding. I've obviously talked about this. Like, there's some schools, when I was applying for my master's, I actually looked at the University of Toronto, and on their website, I couldn't really see anything about funding, so I didn't apply. Because for me, it was a priority to get funding. I couldn't afford to go for a master's without funding. So I didn't bother to apply. If I didn't see that, they said they don't offer that much funding for the master's, but there's funding for the PhD. So why would I waste my time? And funding is not just only take money. Sometimes you need to work, like you do a teaching or a research assistantship, and I'm fine with that. But I didn't even see any of those options. So why would I bother? I didn't bother to apply. But for a PhD, I knew that they had funding, so I applied. Another thing you need to consider is what is the post-work situation in the country that you're going. So if you have any intentions to work after, you need to consider whether you're going to get that opportunity. Another thing you need to consider as a lawyer as well, when you choose, particularly for lawyers, is what does it take to get qualified in this jurisdiction, that I'm going to. So it's not enough to just say, I'm going to this country. If you intend to work there, if you intend to practice there, what are the options? Can you be qualified there? Or is there a way for you to work without being qualified? A lot of times you can actually, if you're in a place where you can get a post-study work permit, you don't have to work as a lawyer while you're trying to get qualified. You can actually work as something else. You can work in HR, you can work any other position while you're preparing for your qualification exams. Another thing you should consider is whether the place you're going to has a culture of internships, and whether there's a way to arrange internships. Now that is not just school specific, that kind of also relates to the whole sector, the whole, the legal markets in where you are. I know that for a lot of schools, for a lot of law firms, and all of that, if they're looking for interns for the summer, the time to apply is actually September. Yes, that means as you're starting your program, you're applying for jobs, you're applying for internships. This is one of the mistakes I made. I didn't know that the applications, deadlines for all those internships were literally like 2.5 seconds after I started my program. So when I realized that I needed to apply, it was crazy because those applications were crazy. So I started applying for 10 applications. I literally sent out 4 applications in one day, and I knew I sent rubbish because there's only so much you can do, because you're not well prepared. But if you know that you're going, for a master's, you need to start looking at the internships available in that location. And whenever you get to a school, most schools have like a job board where they post opportunities that you can apply for. Another thing you should consider is, and I say this with a hint, take this with a hint of salt, is where have people gone? where have people gone? Now, I'm not saying you should go to only schools that you know people have gone, because you can be the person who will forge a new path, and that's absolutely fine. But it's useful to know where people have gone because there's something that's taking them there. So maybe there's funding, you know. I know a lot of people are
Hi, Miriam. Hey, so sorry.
No problem.
Okay, hi, Miriam. So we have
15 minutes.
40 minutes per session.
Yeah.
So we have 6 minutes left on this first session.
Okay.
And then we've already done the same. So we'll log in again using the same link that I shared.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's
fine.
And
we're hoping that
we'll be done. This is my last point.
Like 10 minutes.
Yes. This is my last point, and we'll be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next session can be Q&A.
Yes, precisely.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is going up in 6 minutes.
That's fine.
All right.
That's fine.
Thanks.
So where have people gone is, it's a question that can help you decide where you want to go, because there might be something that's taking people there. Another thing you should consider when you're choosing a master's program is what your end goal is. So particularly if you want to go into academia. If you want to go into academia after, I'd advise that you try to choose a program that gives you the opportunity to do research or to write a thesis. So I'm doing a PhD, but I didn't do a thesis in my master's, but my case is exceptional. Most people have master's thesis, So if you know that academia is on the works for you, then you should choose a school that gives you an option to do a master's thesis. Now, those are the main points that, in summary, that I think you should consider. Before this goes off, I need to pitch in that, Getting is actually running a boot camp on the 18th and 25th of May, where we go through in detail, how to make your choices. We have like a very sophisticated, not an algorithm, but something that we've developed to help you, know what your priorities are. And beyond that, we actually teach you how to make a killer application. So that's on the 18th and 25th of May, and we can figure out how to do that. We'll check Getting Education Consulting online, you can figure it out. So maybe we should end this session and then we can come in and I'll be very happy to answer your questions. Yeah?
Hi, Miriam.
Yes.
Okay, so I think it will be safe for us to log out now.
Yeah.
And then we log in.
Perfect.
Yeah, so that we
Perfect.
can take the questions for first time. But one more thing, I think the mentees are finding it hard to hear. So I don't know if you could just be a bit more audible, like you can increase the volume from your end.
It's at the maximum, but
we just need to be a bit louder.
Yeah, it's at the maximum. I wonder why that is, but
why? Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we would go off now and come back for the Q&A in a few minutes.
That's fine.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm going into a Q&A session. I hope you're able to hear me. This is a bit of an interesting arrangement, but I just wanted to make sure that this session is available for other people who are not part of the mentorship program. So basically, going to graduate school is good, but if you apply these principles, I would say, and if you really think deeply about what you're trying to achieve, you have a chance of doing even better with your decisions. So let me join the other session, and I really hope you'll be able to hear the questions. But what I'll try to do is to repeat the questions so that you can hear me, and then I will answer the questions. All right. Thank you. Okay, let's join this session. Okay, I'm back, but I'd like to test the audio before I proceed. I don't know if you can hear me.
Hi, Mary, would like to do what?
Test the audio. Can you hear me better? Is it better?
It's kind of the same thing. I think I'll wait for others to come on and let's see if they can hear
So
you.
is it low?
Something people before, we only have 6 now.
Mm-hmm. So is it low?
I can hear you fine.
Yeah, I think it must be their network because there's really no reason why. Yeah, if you can hear me, everyone should be able to hear me, I think. So that's why I decided to record the session, because I've had a couple of experiences with live sessions and webinars, and there are always so many challenges, with the tech, that people may not be able to access it. But we can discuss offline how I'm going to make this available to everyone else.
Sorry?
I said we can discuss offline how to make this available to everyone else so they can join in one continuous stream.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. All right, perfect. One sec. I'm trying to make sure that we mute everything else. Yims, can we just mute everyone else except Miriam and I? Perfect. Okay, so we have a question here. We'll listen to the question.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, I can.
Okay, so the first question, Geraldine says, I've gotten my LLM. Okay, so I'm going to start again. So this is the first question we have from Geraldine. She says, I've gotten my LLM, but I wasn't strategic about it, and I didn't maximize my opportunity. I almost regret it now, but I'm better informed, thankfully. Is it advisable that I get another career path with a specific LLM, or do I just keep getting legal experience?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. I really think that your masters, I'm not really sure how to put it, but your masters sometimes could increase or reduce in value depending on what you do after. So, for example, if you have a master, I'm not sure what you have a master's in. If you have a master's in maritime law, for instance, and unfortunately you were not able to, in your own opinion, get as many experiences or really maximize your time studying maritime law. If you are able to get experience in that field, nobody's going to ask you, did you get the experience after the master's or before the master's? Does that make sense? Like, at the end of the day, when they introduce you to come and give a talk, they'll say, Geraldine is a maritime lawyer. She studied maritime law at the University of Swansea and, has so years of experience in maritime law. So that way your master's has appreciated somehow because of the experience that you have. You understand? And the truth is, you're not tied down. You can do a master's because you want to just learn more. And a lot of times people branch out. So you're not really tied down to what you learned. I haven't used corporate finance in a long time. I've just been using more of my WTO and law and economics, right? So you're not tied down to anything. So I don't think there's any point going to get another master's or, being worried that you wasted the time. It's happened. You still have the degree. So what can you do to make that degree become, make that degree worth more? So is that certifications? Is that getting work experience? Is that being involved in associations that do what, your master's was about? So I'm planning, because there's always so many things to do. I'm planning on having another, session sometime in May, a free session to talk about maximizing your undergraduate experience and really being strategic about, the kinds of moves that you make. And a lot of these that I'm teaching you is based on my experience, right? It's based on moves that I'm making in my life currently that I hope are going to pay off, in the future. So hopefully, if you look out for that, maybe that's something you can join in the future, and we can discuss. Like, even though I'll be talking directly to undergrads, you will get so many tips that are going to help you to, I wanted to say a word, but I'm not going to use that word, to really maximize your experiences and, to make the best career decisions. I hope that's helpful.
Awesome. Thanks, Miriam. Second question. So this person says, could you please clarify your point on the connection between internships and getting a master's degree?
Okay.
I didn't get that part.
Okay, so let's use myself as an example. So I resumed in Cambridge, I think end of September or October. And law firms in the city, by that I mean law firms in London, they always want interns. They recruit interns, internships. They have summer internships. They recruit interns for. Okay, so let's say I resumed my master's last year to that's 2018 September, right? The law firms are looking for interns that are going to join their law firms in June or July of 2019, and the application deadline is usually like September ending. That's September 2018. Right. So if you are just going for a master, you're like, okay, I've arrived at my master's, my classes. Then in December, you're now saying, it would be nice to have a summer internship. They're all closed. I hope that makes sense. So the point is, if you know you're going to go for a master's, you need to look out for the opportunities available to you in the city, even as you are applying for the master's, and as you are, ready to go for the master's. That's what I mean.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so there's another question here. This person says, this is Rabi Usman. This person says, I'm trying to build a career in electronic law. Mm-hmm. An LLM won't make sense for me if it is not in that field. I have a couple of challenges. One is finding schools. It's a new area of law. Few schools offer specialization in that field. Secondly is funding. The challenge in one, cutting me out of most scholarship requirements. Any ideas on how I can find a good school and funding?
Well,
in electronic law.
Before we started this session, I wanted to say something, which is that the best way to make use of this question and answer is if people aren't asking questions about their specific case, because that way other people might be able to benefit more if we're asking questions that relate more to a strategy, for instance. So, for example, the first question, can apply to anyone who has, done a master's and is not quite sure. But this question is very specific on electronic law, which I know nothing about. So I will give you the generic answer, which I give everyone, which is that number one, I actually think the first answer I would usually give is that Google is your friend, but I think you've already done that. And I think you have seen, what the options are. So if you know that it is electronic law or nothing else, if you've seen the schools, and there are a limited number of schools, that means you know all the schools you can go. So why is having a school a problem? You understand? So school is not the problem is funding. You understand? Because you've identified the schools that do it. The problem is funding. So what I would advise, I can say, and I don't know what your interest is in electronic law. I don't know whether you've built competence in that area. I don't know what, I don't know. I don't really know. So if, for example, you've shown competence in that area, I would advise you to reach out to professors who are into this field and explain to them, but before you reach out to professors, your email has to be so good, and that's also part of what some of the things we discuss in the workshop, the boot camp, because a lot of times, even you get emails that that the emails will not open any doors. There's some emails that will not open doors. So you need to make sure that you send the kind of email that will open the door for you, if not necessarily to funding, to building a relationship. You may never get funding at that point in time, but if there's an opportunity, that professor might have you in mind. Now, if you know that funding is a challenge, as I said, a lot of the problem I have as a consultant most of the time is that people are very uncompromising. So if you've seen that electronic law as for a master's is not working, you might pursue a master's in something else, in a place that offers funding. You can write your thesis on electronic law. So far, there's somebody who might be able to supervise you. So you can't be rigid and expect everything to fall into place, and then you still have the funding, you still do electronic law, you do everything. You need to compromise. So that's my advice for you. First, reach out to professors, try and establish relationships in that field. Two, compromise a little. And three, maybe you can also explore another option. Like, it doesn't only have to be electronic law. And finally, build competence in that area. So that when you're emailing a professor, you can say, check out my article on this. check out my opinion or my op-ed on in this newspaper. Check out this, and that. So they know that you're somebody serious, not that, oh, I'm just interested in electronic law. So I hope those really help you to strategize going forward. I hope that's helpful. Sorry, I'm a bit straightforward because
Awesome.
you have to be straightforward in this business. I can't lie to you. I can't lie. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so another question we have here is, Bemi says, I've not enrolled for my LLM yet, but I have an idea of what I want to enroll for. I'm just a bit confused about picking a school, as it looks like all schools offering LLMs outside Nigeria are very expensive, and even the ones offering scholarships are partial funding. What do I do in this situation?
Okay, so in this situation, if you know that funding is a priority, I've said it again, you need to look at places where you can go to school for free or almost cheap, and that's in Europe. It's that simple. That's in Europe. So not even all the countries in Europe, obviously not the UK, but if you know that you want to do a master's, there's absolutely no funding. Go to Europe. I would have gone to Europe in a heartbeat if I didn't get funding. I know people who studied in Europe and they're on their way to getting, okay, you guys you need to pay for a session. This is too much. So there people who are going to Europe for a master's. Yes, they learn the difficult language. They apply for a permanent residency in a country that people are just confused about why. But at the end of the day, when they get their permanent residency, they can work in any country in Europe. So I'm just going to leave that there. I'm just going to leave that there for whoever picks it up.
Oh.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay. I'm trying to see if we have any more questions, but I'm not sure that we do.
Okay.
So, Miriam, any last words for our mentees before you go?
Any last words? Well, I would say that grad school, for me, I think it changed my life, and it changed my life. It changed my approach. It changed a lot of things. Oh, that's my experience. And in order for you to have a similar experience, your journey might not be the same as everybody else's journey. You need to think outside of the box. There's so many opportunities. In fact, a lot of people now are even looking at Asia because some of the Asian schools are trying to attract African students. So there isn't one way. There's several ways to skin a cat. There isn't one way. And if you've tried, in the past, you need to try something different. A lot of Canadian schools now because a lot of Nigerians are now applying to them. This last application season was crazy, especially Nigerian lawyers. It was crazy. So you need to have different layers of schools. You need to know why you're picking specific schools, and you need to have a fantastic application. So if you're interested in joining our bootcamp, also, shameless marketing pitch, please join on the 18th and the 25th. There are limited slots available. And to be honest, you're getting times 10 of whatever you pay for, because we're going to give you resources. We're going to really go in detail, to figure out what you're trying to achieve. I'm not spoon feeding anyone, I'm not doing that. But if you care about your future and you're ready to do the work, there's no way you won't see results. It is confirmed. You'll see results. So I really wish you the best in your career. The fact that you're on this mentorship program means that you care about your career. You care about your growth. And that's the first step. The companies that legally engage, like Getting, we're filling the void that our education system is not providing. So the fact that you're here means that you're looking for something more, and I am already confident that you're on your way to success. But as I said, grad school is a viable path. School for me has been a launching pad to so many other things. It may not necessarily be for you, but if you think it is, then it's time to really strategize. And the final thing I'm going to say is you need to plan ahead. I went for my graduate studies immediately after I lost my NYSC, but trust me, I've been planning since I was 100 level. Sorry, 200 level, because I didn't do 100 level. I've been planning. I opened my first Cambridge application in 200 or 300 level. I just wanted to see what was inside. That's the kind of preparation you need, particularly because I knew that I wanted this kind of funding. So everything I did in university, particularly my grades and all, was geared towards that. And that's why I'm trying to have a session for undergraduate students so that they can do some things while they're in school. I don't know how many of you are undergrads, but you can prepare to make yourself competitive even while you're in school. The world now is becoming extremely competitive. So to stand out, you need to really, really stand out. And I'm even talking to myself because I used to think, oh, once you do certain things, you're good. No, every day the competition is changing. Okay, so I really appreciate you guys. I don't think I have anything else to say. If not, I can keep advising you for the next 3 days, and I know you don't want that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Miriam. I think lastly, just because our mentees might have further questions on your program, further questions on postgrads and everything, what are the social media platforms that they can reach you on, and what are your handles?
So you can just check out Getin Edu. That's GETIN Edu on Instagram and on Twitter. If you go to Instagram and Twitter, you'll see the link to our website, which is getineduconsulting.com. So www.getineduconsulting.com. Hold on, let me just do this. www.getineduconsulting.com. So if you do a URL /bootcamp, you'll see all the details about the bootcamp. But once you go to our website, you'll see all the details from our social media website. Social media platforms, you'll see all the details and get the link to our website. So that's it. This was fun. I really wish I had the opportunity to hear voices and get feedback. But and if you know any undergraduate students, your friends, tag them on my page, Miriam Momodu _. There's always a lot going on with business and with my own personal school. So sometimes things are a bit crazy, but I really, really, really need to have this session for undergrad students. It's going to be completely free. But just to really talk to you about the things you can do to be very strategic so that you know what's happening in the job market. Yeah. You're welcome. Thank you. And if you enjoyed this session, give us a shout out online. I'm going to be looking, tag Miriam Momodu _ and Getin Edu. So give us a shout out. All right. Thank you guys for this opportunity. I had a very great
Thanks a lot, Miriam. Thanks for spending some time with us.
No worries.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Enjoy the rest of your Easter break.
No break today.
Thank you, Miriam.
Sadly. Another thing you should look at is countries that don't give public holidays. No holiday today. But it's fine. It's fine. All right. Bye-bye.
All right, then.
Yeah.
Yeah, bye.